My name's Kim Shelton, and I was in a car accident in 1997. And I actually, it was a really bad car accident. A woman hit me from behind going about 45, and I saw her coming, so I braced myself. So that beginning was bad. I walked away from it. I went to the regular doctor, went to a chiropractor for a few months, no big deal, was released. 6 months later, I slowly started having headaches, and they were so gradual and it was so slow that I really wasn't aware that I was in so much pain, until my husband started noticing that I was taking so much Tylenol. And about 5 years later, after the headaches had progressed, and I had gone to different doctors and gotten, headache medication and stuff, moved to Denver and started going to school, and that's when the first symptoms started. My left arm was going numb. All of a sudden, we're in normal positions. It was really strange. Like, did my arms used to be, go numb like that, and it was really strange. And the second symptom was my eyes were straining really bad, and it just hurt to look around. And the final thing that made me go to the doctor was I kept trying to lay out in the sun, and I was only able to last like 10 minutes, and then I'd go inside and almost pass out, and couldn't even take a shower because the heat was bothering me so bad. So I finally went to a general practitioner, and that was in July of 2003, and she sent me to a physical therapist because I said, yes, I had a car accident, that's probably what this is all about. And so she sent me to the physical therapist, and they worked on me. They did massage therapy and physical therapy, and nothing changed. So I went back to my general doctor, and she sent me to the ear, nose, and throat doctor to make sure my equilibrium was okay, and everything checked out. And from then I was sent to get an MRI and to a neurologist. And by this time, it was about 6 months after going to the general doctor in the first place. And at this point, I was unable to get out of bed. I went from the numb arm to not being able to get out of bed, not being able to walk by myself for more than about 5 minutes. I was going to pass out all the time. I was so nauseous, and I couldn't look around. I couldn't handle light or sounds, or smells were weird, and I could not handle the heat at all. And so I went to the neurologist, and they thought I had MS because of all these symptoms, and it turns out that it wasn't MS, and that was the first time that I heard migraine. So he said, yes, you're having cluster migraines, which basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I would have migraine after migraine, and I was never without a migraine. And this lasted for over 2 years until I really finally got help. From that point, he didn't have a whole lot that he could do for me. He didn't know what to do other than physical therapy. And I was so close to finishing school, I decided to tell him, do what you can, get me through school, and I'll go home and figure out what's going on with me, home was Oklahoma. So he put me on a anti-nausea medication, put me on an anti-seizure medication, which had a lot of side effects, one being memory loss, so I walked around like an idiot. And it curbed it just enough to where I could go to class and come home and go to bed. Go to class and come home and go to bed. It wasn't living, and it definitely didn't. It was maybe 30% difference to where I at least could drive around and go to school. Then about 6 months later, I was on the freeway, 6-lane highway, going 80 miles an hour, and started to pass out while I was driving. So realized that this was much more severe than it should have been, and so I couldn't drive for the last year of school. And they kept having to change my medications because my body would get used to it, and they couldn't put me on more. It would cause more side effects. So that's kind of what I dealt with. And by the time I got home, I was so done with everything. So we started from scratch, went to a general doctor when I got here, and he didn't know really what to do. So he sent me to a neurologist, and between that and I went to 2 other neurologists, everybody said, yes, you're having migraines, but we don't know why. We don't know how to fix it. And some people just have headaches and we don't know why, and we'll be able to put you on medication, but that was the extent of their help. And I was so distraught by this time because this was 2 years into my constant migraines, which was affecting it was enabling my life. And then my dad was like, before I made an appointment with a pain specialist just so I could deal with the pain. And my dad was like, call Dr. Roadhouse. He'd been going to Dr. Roadhouse since we'd lived here for years and years, and they were friends, and he's like, he'll at least help you. And so we called him, and he got on the phone, and he said that he had did some time in headache clinic, and if he couldn't help me, he would at least point me in the right direction to get help. So when I was like, that was the best answer I'd gotten since I had found all this out. So when I got to Dr. Roadhouse's, he gave me, or we took x-rays and everything like I had at all the other doctors. And after waiting a little bit, he brought me into his office and he put the x-rays up against the light box, and next to it was a chart, and it had real pictures of other neck x-rays, and from what your neck should be all the way down to what the worst case scenario was. And what he was showing me was mine was about the 14th or 15th worst case scenario. And he showed me exactly what was wrong with my neck and why everything was happening to me with the heat problems and the dizziness and the migraines and everything. And he said, this is how we're going to fix it. And I started treatment, and within a week or two, the migraines started just all of a sudden dissipating. By summertime, I was completely off all of my medication. I probably had symptoms of the migraines for the first 6 months, but not full-on migraines. By the end of the summer, I was driving again, and it's been a year or two, but I have been completely back to where I was before all this started. I'm working again. I'm able to work out. I'm able to drive. I'm feeling closest to normal that I've ever felt.